but let's do what we came here for.
Okay.
Let's talk about young Edgar.
Oh dear, poor Edgar. We really like to take it from one end to the other, right?
There's extremities, sure,
Or
but
yes. But he's a good one. And I mean,
yes,
he's not all, it's a different sort of doom and gloom,
yes,
right?
I think so.
I think so too. But I do think his last words are quite kind of boring for who he was.
Yeah, I think there's that Hemingway quote about, and I'm going to mangle it, be dull and uninteresting in your regular life so you can be dull and or can be exciting and action packed in your writing life,
Yes.
which is only funny
Which
because
he
that
didn't do that.
is not him. Right, exactly. And
No.
Poe the same way.
Right. Very true.
um but I feel like there's something about him, I don't know what it is, that kind of clicks in with the something about him catches people's imagination
Yes.
in a really interesting way.
Well, do you think it is from his writings? I've always thought it was.
I think so. I mean, he invented the first modern detective story, or maybe the first detective story ever. I believe it's a detective story
Probably.
ever.
I think so too.
I did see something in the research of this that said he is the first. There's a phrase they use that sounds very like this is a very weird. It's like baseball facts where they're like, this guy is the first left-hander to hit 3 home runs on a Sunday when the
Yes.
moon is in the second house. But they list him as the first American professional writer.
Oh, so he's the first one to get paid?
So they claim, or that he had enough
That
money to do it
feels weird.
successfully, because he didn't.
No, he
Throughout his
didn't.
life. It's like all these things he did to then try to get.
And if we know anything, we know that in order to be a professional, you do not need to make a lot of money. You just have to
No,
make some money.
it's a state of mind then
It is. It's
to
a
be
being.
professional.
But
I
do you
think
think
if
it's because where you study him so much? Like as kids we're introduced to him, and often people who haven't been exposed to that sort of darker side of literature yet.
maybe it's that it's the one of the cooler things to read that kind of has
That you're
aged
allowed
well.
to, right?
Right, there's a morbidity to it all. I I think if we're going to credit him as the first professional American writer, I think we should also credit him as like the inventor of Kickstarter. We had
Right.
all his fellow
Yes.
cadets kick in money for him to make his book.
Fast. That's also just fascinating. I like his rule following at West Point. That seems like
Well,
something
that's
I would do, but it's all hearsay, right?
yeah, and I wish I could find the article because this person deserves all the credit in the world for doing the research. I believe it was on crimereads.com. Somebody did the digging through the West Point archives, and like there's no record in any of his files of that he showed up nude except for a belt to a roll call.
See, that doesn't make me feel it's not true because I feel like in West Point, there's a lot of things that don't actually end up where they should.
True. And military records are not known for being the most organized,
Right.
as certain prisons in certain Middle Eastern countries will attest.
Correct.
Not a
Correct.
political show.
Nope.
But I think there's just enough weirdness throughout Poe's life that kind of makes him somebody that you're kind of fascinated to study. And it pops up briefly towards the end of the episode where we go through all the different things that people have said that he died from.
Mm-hmm.
And the theory of rabies was one that was in the Times. There was a great Hal Wilner produced half live album, half studio recording of various people reading Poe, called "Closed on the Count of Rabies." That
Excellent
I
title.
I went to one of the nights of the recording, and it was everything you could want and more.
That's
If one
amazing.
of the things you want is Allen Ginsberg performing the bells and Lou Reed reading you the Telltale Heart.
Of course it is.
So,
Lou Reed reading me the Telltale Heart is something I want every night.
and then Debbie Harry read another poem, and I can't remember what it was, but at the same time, somebody was on the side of the stage with a giant piece of sheet metal and like a drill or something, and they were kind of running it perpendicular to the sheet metal, just making this loud screeching
Oh, dear
noise.
Lord.
And she kind of kept stopping and staring at them with that very like, you can stop this right now, but I'm not going to
Right.
start screaming. And it was very, very hard to tell if she was serious or not,
Ooh,
which
that's
was just made it all the more.
makes
And
it better.
it was at an old church. Garth Hudson from the band played the organ and was just up in the belfry rocking.
Of
It was great.
course.
But that's where this theory of rabies came from. And then, but it's also interesting, like he's also become a bit of a punchline to stuff. One of my shooting trips, there's a great series of children's board books. I got Edgar Get Ready for Bed. There's
Oh,
also, I think, Edgar Take a Bath, something like that. And
yes,
it's about a raven named Edgar.
of
And every
course.
time the unseen parents, a la Charlie Brown, ask him to do something, he responds with,
Nevermore.
yeah, exactly. Um,
But I
but
feel like that's not a punch. I mean, Nevermore is often a punchline, but I feel that having children's books, like children book adjacent stories, right?
mm-hmm.
I think is just exposure to, it's just another entree. It's like
Yes,
Uncle Andy's Cats, all those things. It's just an entree for the kids.
that's
It's
a
not,
great book.
it's a great book. It's not a punchline. It's a
Right.
let us
But
lure you into this madness that you're technically not supposed to know about till you're much older.
right. I remember the Poe toaster, that whole thing.
I don't remember that.
Oh, you don't know the story?
Mm-mm.
So for like, I want to say it was third. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. 20 to 30 years at midnight on Poe's birthday every year, this figure in sort of a black cape with some sort of scarf around their face and a mask would show up at Poe's grave in Baltimore, place, I believe it was a single rose on his headstone, get out a little glass of, I think it was cognac, sort of toast Poe, drink it, and then
Mm-hmm.
walk off. And this went on for years. There was a whole group of people who would gather to watch, but would never enter the cemetery because it was kind of small, and basically saw their role as keeping people back. Like, we don't want to spoil this
Right.
magical thing.
Ritual.
And then the whole thing fell apart. At some point, the toaster left a note saying something along the lines of like the torch had been passed, and so everyone assumed that this person's son took over. And then
Okay.
the next year, he left a note saying, and I'm saying he, but it could be any gender, left a note saying that the Ravens were going to win the Super Bowl, which was such outside of any
Right.
previous year, and it just kind of, it's since stopped.
It got cheesy. Well,
Yeah.
you really confused me because I actually do know that story, but I didn't know that's what it was called. And
I
I
see.
thought you were speaking of the other literal toaster. Like I thought it was going to be like
Oh, a Hello Kitty
Raven, like
toaster.
Hello Kitty. Like I thought it was
Yes.
going to be, and I'm like, what? They sell such a, or the very famous portrait of him, like just embedded on your grilled cheese,
Mhm.
which I would buy.
We should market that.
Put that in our break room, the professional
Yes.
office building.
And my children are well versed in the fact that the Baltimore Ravens are, to my knowledge, the only professional sports team named after a literary figure.
Yes, I believe that's probably true.
And then my other favorite story about Poe, and I think we've talked about this, maybe not on the show, is of, I want to say it's Grip. I want to make sure I get the name right. His raven, or his
Yes,
crow.
Raven
So
sexier.
it is. And this here was, so in 1840, I believe, 1840s, 1850, something like that. Charles Dickens came to America, and it was sort of the first run of Beatlemania, which people always say about everything, but this was actually true.
Okay.
Dickens's barber was selling the remnants of his hair to people. Dickens and his wife, I believe it was in Cleveland, lay down for a nap and woke up to see people just staring in their windows watching them sleep.
Excellent.
And throughout the country, they were having these Dickens balls and various celebrations. And everywhere they went, they'd have this huge fancy dinner and celebration. And then Dickens would get up to speak after dinner and ask to get paid.
Of course.
He was pushing for international copyright law. And so at that point, he was not getting anything. You could go to London, buy a copy of a book of his, bring it here, reset the type, and all of yours.
Yes.
So somewhere along the way, Poe had reviewed one of his books and they had corresponded a bit. And then they met on this trip and hung out. Hopefully drinking.
Of course.
But so they were talking about the talking bird in Barnaby Rudge, which I have not read.
No, I have not either.
Yeah, my Dickensian literatures.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah. So the character of Grip, this talking bird, was based on Dickens's actual crow. Same name.
Yes.
In one of those weird, I think I would take this as a compliment, but I'm not really sure. When the bird died, Dickens had it stuffed and sent to Poe.
Yes.
The legend has it that is the bird that Poe was sort of looking at, thinking about when he wrote The Raven.
Well, it has to be, right?
And now that raven, Grip the Crow, is on display in the Philadelphia Public Library.
As well, he should be.
I don't want to know if that's not the truth, you know?
It's the truth.
And maybe that's the thing about Poe. Anything you hear, you could kind of buy and go, yeah, I could see that.
True. Like, but we buy everything that we think is a good story.
True. But like, I feel like with Poe, the marrying his cousin, like he really leaned into
well,
it.
that's the weird
Victorianness. I did not realize
the weird Victorianness overall is.
I did not realize until doing the research for this episode that they found out that Virginia had tuberculosis while she was singing and playing the piano, which is the most amazing, like,
disgusting.
I just see it in the movie, the close-up of the sheet music, and the oh, great.
You know.
How else do you shoot that?
And the like missed note.
Yeah.
She coughs.
Of course. It's a version of the coughing into a handkerchief, and then you look at it. Of course. You know how that movie ends.
Yeah, always.
But so the other thing that they think Poe might have died from, so it's
drinking.
What'd you say?
Drinking.
It could be drinking, it could be his various addictions and other stuff. But apparently at the time there's a big practice of this thing called cooping.
Oh.
So basically it was a rigged election, and he would be and at the time the big thing was to drug people and drag them around to various voting places and have them vote multiple times the way you
dear
wanted.
Lord.
And so
how things never change.
Exactly. Well, this one, I think he actually voted.
Right.
Just he shouldn't have.
Right.
Again, not a political show.
Not a political show.
But so they think perhaps he was suffering from something. Your rabidity, your tuberculosity, whatever it is.
Probably all of the above.
Probably.
Rabid tuberculosity with a dose of absinthe.
Smattering of, yeah. I don't know. Was he a big absinthe guy? Again,
I don't know, but I'm a big absinthe girl, and it fits.
Why am I not shocked about that at all?
That I'm an absinthe girl?
Yeah. Do you like watching it burn? Is that the thing?
Yes, I like the whole process.
I've never tried it. Mostly because
so good.
The description of it sounds disgusting.
Well, I'm not even a black licorice person. I am a red vines kind of girl.
I'm not a
don't even say Twizzlers. Don't even go to Twizzlers.
Okay. I'm not a red vines person, but I like red licorice.
Twizzlers taste like wax.
Red vines are too dry.
I know, but they have a heartier. Twizzlers' problem is, and I like strawberry, but like the strawberry vine of licorice is not appropriate. It should be cherry. A Twizzler nib I like, but I want the vine.
Oh no, I'm good with the nib. It took me a little bit to come around to the nib.
I don't like the pull and peel.
No, that's too much work.
It's weird. But no, I like a red
And thank
vine.
you for coming to our TED Talk.
I know. I do like a red vine. I don't like a black licorice, but for some reason, I like ouzo. I like all of the licorice flavored liquors, and absinthe I like the most. And there is a difference between that which you can get in the Netherlands or Dutch Antilles and that you can get in America.
How so? Stronger?
You're never gonna like, I don't know. It's much stronger in the Antilles and Holland, but it's smoother.
In either one, are you seeing fairies?
In the Dutch one, you probably could.
Okay.
I've never seen the fairy, but I want to see the fairy. That's part of why I love it. It's like Tinkerbell is going to emerge.
Right.
But I like the whole process of the spoon and the sugar, and it smokes, and it's really everything I like. It's all spectacle, and
right.
I can't believe you've not tried it.
I'm more of a spirits than wine or beer person. Tell me you're shocked, but I just the black licorice side of things always was just like, I don't know. Not that you're drinking
like
scotch or whiskey for the taste.
I know, but I feel like you'd like the old timiness of it, which I also like.
Love
that
the
we
old
could
timiness
do
of
this
it.
with Poe, or really
put on
anyone.
A jaunty hat, or I guess it'd be a very tall, like kind of Abraham Lincoln type hat.
You could, or a jaunty hat. Depends if we're drinking it in stateside or in Paris.
This is true. Yeah, so I don't know. Poe, I feel like it's just when you say, for example, for I don't know, let's just say this show.
Yes.
When we say we're doing Poe, I feel like everyone goes like, "Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'd want to hear that."
Which is true, but I also feel like we would have been, I don't know, just destroyed if we didn't do Poe. Like, I feel like it's a given as well.
We would be remiss if we did not mention him.
Yes.
And yet you're right, his final words aren't as good as some of the others. But I think there's a sadness to it that very much kind of fits his
I'm not sure why I like this show and why I'm so happy we're doing this show, because I think that's what it is. It's what it brings me down. I'm like, really?
This is the best you can come up with?
This is it? Come on now. This is no Cask of Amontillado.
No, it's not even a House of Usher.
Which is tearing up the airwaves. We're also very timely and didn't even know it.
Yes. I'm more of a Mask of the Red Death fan myself.
I love the Mask of the Red Death. When we were in 8th grade, now German Rachel wrote a song about the Mask of the Red Death.
Interesting. Very Kate Bush.
And performed it in class.
Did it sound like anything from the Kate Bush oeuvre?
No.
Because I just feel like similar era.
No, it sounded like a hymn. Pretty sure she may have taken the music from a hymn. But it was good.
Our Mask is a very good mask.
No.
Death is
no. But I feel like
the music raise you up on Red Death wings and
on Red Death. Gloria. Kyrie eleison.
All things masked and red.
It was a good, but I can't hear anyone say that without singing that song. It is the ultimate earworm. So if nothing else, the earwormness, even if,
right,
we were terrible students in 8th grade.
German Rachel, we tip our jaunty hats to you.
Yes, and she likes absinthe too. Tracks, I know.
I am not familiar with German. I'm only familiar with the Rachel of our shores.
Yes, well,
but one can deduce.
Yes, Indeed.
So I'm not sure how we go from here, because we don't have like the big wrap up of, oh, here's who we're going to do next week. Because I
Well,
feel like we touched upon it already.
well, no, we can still touch upon it or talk about it again. You think people actually listen to every single thing we say?
I don't know.
Isn't the whole
Touch on
key
it.
to
We can
marketing
still fondle. It's all right.
multiple, right?
Yes.
Like multiple attempts.
This is true.
Mhm.
This one, I don't, for some reason, it's close to my heart. I think it's because she's a fellow masshole, as the
Of
saying
course,
goes.
yes.
The ultimate Massachusetts native who just wanted to be left alone and didn't want to talk to anybody.
Mhm.
Again, near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
We are speaking, of course, of Sarah Good of the Salem witch trials.
Mhm.
And I got the gist of the witch trials before even I got to Scarlet Letters.
Crucible?
Crucibles. Thank you. No, Crucible. You're right. But the Sarah Good story, I did not know all of the little details that make it so insanely depressing and tragic.
Yeah, it's terrible, but good, also seasonal.
Yes, and I think if you maybe there is some sort of mental illness in her life, perhaps. I think that sort of could be inferred
Perhaps.
or read
Yeah,
into, or just decades of being mistreated by society and everyone around her.
which could tend to lead to mental illness erupt.
They could begat each other
They
either
would
direction.
begat, one begats the other.
My favorite story about the Salem witch trial, I don't believe we've gotten into this.
No.
So Salem used to be a bigger community than it is now.
Yes.
And so Salem went into a little bit of not Quincy, God, Marblehead, Scituate, Danvers, which is up there.
Mhm.
And Danvers, along lovely Route 1, is not best known. One of the things they're known for, they have a giant hill, and I guess it's still there. Looming over Route 1 is what did they call it? I think they used words like lunatic asylum at the time.
Oh,
An 1870s Arab built asylum.
yes.
It's supposedly where they perfected the lobotomy.
Mm, hot damn.
Yes. And H.P. Lovecraft, he who must not be named because there's something problematic with him. I can't remember
Yes, I
what.
believe there is.
But I believe Mrs. Lovecraft, her family lived up in the Salem, Danvers area. And so
Mhm.
he used to travel from Providence, Rhode Island, up Route 1, I guess, and would see this giant thing hovering over Route 1, and took the image of it and put it into his works under
Course.
the name of Arkham Asylum,
But of course,
which then Batman took and saw home with the Joker.
yes.
So the first movie I worked on was filmed at the Danvers State Asylum.
Mhm.
Have we been over this?
Yes, but I like this story, and we haven't been over it on the show, I don't believe.
It scared the holy hell out of me.
Of course.
It apparently is now a cult classic.
Look at
And
that.
Chuck Palahniuk apparently counts it upon as one of his favorites.
Of course he does.
A horror film called Session 9.
Mhm.
And I believe, as we've gone over, perhaps not on this show, but other shows, I do not believe in
Correct.
spirits and other stuff.
Yes.
However, you walk through that building, there's a vibe.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And there are a lot of sort of cold gusts of air coming from places where you're like, there shouldn't be a gust of air coming from here. It is now apartment buildings, which is
Yes.
Lord
It's a
have mercy.
trend. It's much how they one in Traverse City is.
I just cannot think of anywhere less I would want to live.
Well, and that one is exceptionally scary. I will say the one up in Traverse, they were known, although it was still bad things still happened there and very sick people were there. They were known for being very forward thinking and like beauty is wellness, and they had lots of trails and gardens and yoga type things. Like it was very much trying to focus on, you know, the
Yes.
things we all try to do now to stay healthy. So they were very, it has a little bit less of a scare, but it is a very cool place now.
Well, so this it was designed probably by the same guy, Dr. Kirkbride, I believe.
Yes, 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 yes.
And his whole thing was nature will make you well. So the hospital was split into two wings, half male, half female, and the offices in the middle. And so every window of every room looked out over some sort of greenery. But there were still bars on the windows and that sort of thing.
Of course, right, same, same.
They also were sort of not known for, but since then they one, when anybody died, they just buried them in a field.
Of course they did.
With very little markings as to where and whom.
Yes.
And so there has been a at least at the time, which was 20 years ago now, a resurgence of families of patients and patients themselves coming back and saying, could you at least just mow the area, maybe?
Right.
Show a little respect. It also basically closed on a Friday and just let everybody out. And while we were making the film, and the thing that just made me be like, oh, I do not care for this. You could go through, and people did, because this is sort of that urban spelunking, what do they call it?
Yeah,
urban, whatever. You could still go through the file drawers and cabinets and find people's records. I just remember the one, and this is from 20s or 30s, so you kind of, you'll get the backwardness of it all. But basically this woman's file was just like, she had a miscarriage and now she sits by the fire and is all sad. So
what do you think's going on there?
Right, exactly. I was just like, this is awful. This is just not great. But I tell you all of that to tell you this. That hill where all of this badness went down was apparently also the original, or was the home of the judge in the Salem witch trials.
Oh yeah, there's a lot going on in that place.
So there are centuries of bad juju happening on this hilltop.
This is like worse than poltergeist.
Oh, you would pray for a Native American burial ground,
right?
If that was the only thing,
which that's probably there
for that.
That was probably there first.
Oh, definitely.
That's probably why there's a hill.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, seriously. Yeah.
No, Massasoit and his friends were not treated great.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, I don't think, even though the same dude was the, whatever, I don't think I'd want to live there. The one in Traverse is nice.
I just feel like,
but it's nicer to just go to the restaurant and hit the shops.
Is what everyone says about the hospitals. It's just that feeling of like bad stuff happened here.
I know.
And I don't want to paint an entire city with that brush, but walking down certain streets in Berlin, I just got a vibe of like, don't feel comfortable here.
Yeah, I get that completely.
There's something in the air here.
There are definitely places that...
And it's not just strudel.
No, it is definitely not just strudel or schnitzel.
Yes, thank you. There's like a whiff of fascism. I don't know what it is.
Something.
Yeah. Something was in the air that night, Fernando.
I mean, clearly. Too bad they were at the Rio Grande, but
how did we get to this?
Because we were talking about the Salem witches.
Yes, of course. So
see, look at me knowing where we were.
We go to
such a grown-up
Swedish singer.
Well, yeah, but they were Swedish singers dressed in French Revolution dresses, performing about some sort of Spanish, Mexican, South American battle.
Were they dressed like French? Because that was, Waterloo for Eurovision, I know.
Oh, maybe that was that. Maybe I've got them confused. I feel like they were at one point.
I pray someone was listening to this screaming at their device.
That I was wrong.
Idiots. Well, no. Hey, you idiots, go back to talking about witches.
Oh, well, anyone
Or
who listens to any of our shows is going to realize that.
or two, dumbass, it's take a chance on me. Let's move on.
I mean, probably all of the above,
But
right?
I most likely, I hope.
Yes.
But next week, as you can tell from this, is obviously Sarah Good, and I think it's indicative of all of the Salem witches. But and I think we talked about it in another episode. The one man killed during the witch trials who was crushed to death, who his last words were more rocks as they were piling rocks on top of him.
Mm-hmm.
Another story, another time,
Mm-hmm.
but pretty good as well.
Also good, yes.
And that we had spoken briefly. I just wanted to just touch all the bases.
Please.
Dorothy Parker's final words.
Yes.
I have been searching to find out what they were.
Well, that's so kind of you.
Yes. So no one knows what her final words were. I mean, she did. I don't know if the time she tried to kill herself, if she left a note.
I don't know either.
I feel like if anybody would have, it would have been her.
I feel like she would have too.
There's very much a Tulu Bankhead vibe from her.
This is why I love her, and this is why she was on my mind.
The description of Katharine Hepburn's performance, and I can't remember the play, ran from A to
Yes.
ran from A to B.
Yes.
So, but her inscriptions for a headstone that she wanted. So it now says, excuse my dust.
Yes, which I love.
Yes. There's also, if you can read this, you're too close.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that she wanted that I really think would be perfect was wherever she went, including here, it was against her better judgment.
I mean, I want that on mine. I'm going to steal that. I'll give her full credit for it, but
I think so, yes.
right?
So, and maybe that's what we end on.
I think so.
Against her better judgment. Here we are.
Indeed.
And now
Pardon our dust.
Pardon our dust. Now on to witches.
Yes. Which witch is which?
Yeah, it's weird. Sarah Good, I guess she only had the daughter. So she didn't have like a.
I mean, you quote Dorothy Parker all the time.
Son of a witch.
No, I'm back. I just pulled her quotes.
I know. What's the quote from her that I use?
What fresh hell is this?
Oh, yeah. That's definitely, yeah.
You can lead a horticulture, but you can't make her think. See, this wasn't just plain terrible. This was fancy terrible. This was terrible with raisins in it. See, this would be me. I require 3 things in a man. He must be handsome, ruthless, and stupid. I mean, she didn't need to see anything when she was done. She said it all.
Yeah. If you do want to read an incredibly sad story, read her bio.
No, I know. I don't want to. I like to keep her where she is.
Yeah, at the table, cutting wise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I should do some research into some of the Algonquin folks and see what their last words. Because one of my favorite things about the county in which I live, and then we'll really stop doing the show. But Robert Benchley, George S. Kaufman, and Dorothy Parker all had homes in this area for summer. And she went to the local theater, which is walking distance from our home, and is the same theater, different seats, but same marquee and all of that. And I just loved every time to go to that theater and think of Dorothy Parker sitting somewhere in the dark, chain smoking, absolutely hating whatever it is she's watching.
Yes, right?
Including when the Plimpton film screened there.
Of course.
I bet she's somewhere just hating this.
And of course she is.
Made me so happy.
Yes, absolutely.